All right, Sunny Side Up community, you are in for the most incredible treat today. We are on with special guest, Dr. Helen Kociba. And I am going to introduce her in just a second. First, I want to say thank you to a sponsor that has been supporting the podcast for a couple years, creatingharmonyco.com, and she is my partner in staying organized. You can do virtual meetups with her. She will come to your house, help you get your pantry organized, your closet organized. And she's just a fabulous, fabulous entrepreneur. So big shout out to my supporter at creatingharmonyco.com. And then real quick, I wanted to invite you and remind you that May 17th is my upcoming women's retreat. Every year in May, we get together in Highland, Michigan. And the retreat this year is getting a God-centered glow up, which means we will be having faith-filled conversations, community, delicious food, workshops, wellness, all of the things. And so, Dr. Kociba, you are invited as well. We would love to have you. So
Thank you.
mark your calendar for May 17th. More information forthcoming. So without further ado, I would like to just have the honor of saying welcome. Dr. Kociba is a board certified naturopathic doctor, which many of you know that is what I am in a program to become. And in fact, she is one of the lead professors at the Naturopathic Institute, and she is the lead instructor for the Doula Program. She is a professional holistic birth doula and a women's health advocate for over 25 years. So really, really cool. Welcome. We're so glad you're here.
I am so happy to join you. Very, very honored to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So you are in central Michigan currently, right?
Yes, Midland, right in the middle of the state.
Okay, perfect. And that is where your practice is?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Well, we're really glad to have you here. And what inspired me to ask you to be a guest on Sunny Side Up is just so you all know and you have some background. Dr. Kosiba was a professor for a class of mine that I attended called Glandular Symphony, which was a fancy way of talking about hormones. And literally, you guys, my pencil, I had to keep sharpening it the whole class. I was just feverishly taking notes on all of the goodness that Dr. Kosiba was bringing forth. And so I wanted to have her on this episode, and we both kind of agreed we're not even going to be able to fit it all in today, but we're going to talk about some really juicy nuggets and some really great things. So Dr. Kosiba, the first thing that I wanted to ask you is when you filled out the Sunny Side Up form, there were some prompt questions on there. And one of the things you wrote, and I want you to tell me what you mean by, I feel like I have lived at least 3 lifetimes of experience in this one life. So, what do you mean by that? You're obviously a tremendous resource, but I would really love to start there.
So when I wrote that, I was feeling incredibly like just transparent because one thing we really are here to honor this whole journey. Well, sometimes it's just like God puts extra emphasis in your journey, like all at one time. So I feel like I've gotten to step onto the playing field early, being able to help first my sisters, my community of friends and family, and then just overall, not even sure why I really wanted to be that person that learned about how to help somebody do something. It was really kind of funny the way that it all started, but I felt like I fell into becoming a birth doula before I even knew what a birth doula was. I was helping women do some of these really super amazing things, and I didn't even know why I was gravitating towards it. So that started at a younger age for me, over 25 years. And then at the same time, my life paralleled with two ailing parents. I got to walk them out of this life and experience that world of deep grief and just really, so I felt like with all the good and all the really real situations, and then I've gotten to have children and a husband and family and business. I just feel like I'm really smashing it all in. I'm not going to take 1 minute for granted and just keep running with it. So I feel like I've been here a really long time, even though I'm just in my fourth decade.
It does sound like that, indeed. And I feel that. I feel that being a mom and a wife and going after a doctorate and all the things that we juggle. What does a day to day look like for you? Being a naturopathic doctor and a doula, what does that look like?
Okay, so I have one child still at home. I have four children altogether. So four beautiful kids, two boys, two girls, one child at home who's 14. So my day starts with her, getting her to school. She takes classes at the high school in eighth grade. So she's just running her marathon herself. So I get her to her place and then I come to the office and I start out by getting organized. And then I see people on a one-on-one basis throughout the day for a myriad of things. So, not just women, I see sometimes their spouses, I see sometimes a brother, but mostly women. And I talk about everything from the world of fertility, missed periods, how to just feel really good as women, all the way to if there was a cancer diagnosis, if there was somebody struggling with chronic conditions. I help assist the body in whatever process they're in at that time. So I love being a naturopath because we don't stand in the way of healing. We rather just undo dams that are preventing healing from happening. So it's one of those beautiful things. Then after I'm done here, I wrap it up and I go home to run the wife and mother zone again. So it's just kind of an in and out, but I love it because I can be really present while I'm here. And then my life is another element of being a naturopath. You live a natural life. So
Amen. And for those people that are listening that have never heard of the word doula, what is a doula?
okay, so a doula literally translates to woman who serves. So I go to, well, in the beginning days when I first got started versus now, it looks a little bit different. But a doula assists in the birth process with women who are, whether they're in a hospital or at home, it doesn't matter. We're their North Star. We're the one that stays with them from the beginning of they get pregnant, they might contact us partway through the birth, and then we're the ones that contract professionally to be with them throughout the birth experience and then stick around afterwards to help them with breastfeeding. We're not really the relative, we're not the friend, but we're a trained professional that can really help them have the birth that they want.
I feel like every woman should have that indeed.
I feel like if it was called a drug, like every woman would want it. It's something that really helps you have the birth of your dreams.
Yeah, if I could go back, my kiddos are 9 and 11. And if I could go back and do it all over again, I would do so many things differently. But we only know what we know, and we do the best we can do in that moment, right?
Right, right. So now as a naturopath, I've got a spinning office and a lot of things. I actually teach women how to become doulas. I teach husbands how to be that partner that can be there for their wife. So I've graduated into the more senior role of that. So I'm not on call every minute. I spent 25 years on call. So I now am the teacher. So I get to help other people support women during that precious time.
That's amazing and super important, right? So thank you. We appreciate that. Um, what are some trends that you're seeing with women? Just kind of piggybacking off of all of your women's work and all the things you do. What are some things you're seeing?
Sure. So things are seemingly running in threads and trends. So currently, I would say within this year, last year, and just kind of current to this day, just right before we took this call together, I see women struggling in areas of their life in like period management, not having regular monthly periods, them being thrown off all of a sudden instead of something that even tracks off the beaten path. I've helped women who are feeling like perimenopause is kicking in their early 30s and where those hormones are just getting a bit dysregulated, where it might not be menopause itself coming about, but just a dysregulation of hormones entirely. I've seen a lot of thyroid problems. We'll just call them problems. I don't diagnose, I don't have people come in and look for that, but they come in and they have again, we'll call it dysregulated function in something in their glands. So the thyroid often gets blamed if they start having, sluggishness, their hair starts to, possibly fall out, their skin gets dry. They've got all of these things that indicate that the thyroid is having trouble. But one of the biggest things that we need to look at is it's not just one gland functioning on its own. It's not ever isolated. It's a whole symphony, like I teach in that class, where one does work with the other. Often thyroid is masked by adrenal fatigue and adrenal weakness. So that leads me to my last trend that I see, where people are just walking this earth just so burnt out on every side right now. So that stress axis that occurs in the body between the brain and the body is just, it's being interrupted left and right. So if we can see the stress come back into balance, and we can see these glands start to function correctly, the body then doesn't have some of the, I guess we'll call them symptoms, or things happening that are causing them to come in and see somebody like me, or maybe go in to see a doctor and end up on a medication, possibly for a condition that doesn't exist.
Okay, so that's a toughie because it's so easy to say to de-stress. It's so easy to say, but when you are meeting with, I mean, even men, we don't want to exclude men from this conversation because I'm sure, the men that you do see that have dysregulation, right, of their
Mhm.
nervous system, of their organs, of their body. What are some ways you encourage people to de-stress?
Right. So that's one of my favorite and hardest thing to tackle when I see people, because you hear it. And just like you and me, I know I have stress. I know you probably have a little stress somewhere hiding. Um, when I say it, I tell people it's like telling the tax accountant that comes in and he's just frazzled at tax time. Well, you better just quit your job then. Easy, all done and dusted. That's just not an option for our life, right? So, what I do is I take that same situation where stress is a factor, and we start to raise some of these natural thresholds in the body that exist that allow us to sustain stress. And when I say stress, stress can be a wedding coming up, it can be a birthday party, it can be something really dreaded, like a big, huge exam that you know is going to be a tough one. Stress doesn't just manifest in just a negative, it can be a positive. But the body has to have an agreement that the nervous system can support whatever that stress brings. So even though it's like a birthday party you've been looking forward to, if you're nervous about a certain element, some translate that as anxiety, some translate that as like a dysfunction of of the nervous system, when really it's still needing that same support, as in stress in a bad way, stress in a good way. So I use herbal remedies. Some of my favorites are the adaptogen herbs and nervine herbs. Some examples of that would be passion flower. Passion flower is sort of like nature's Xanax. I don't know if I can say that, because of the way that it goes in and it tunes the nervous system. It's like a beautiful strum of a guitar when it is plucked too hard, and it's got like lots and lots of imposing elements that make that stress feel really overwhelming. Those herbs, especially adaptogens, which help you adapt, they nourish the adrenals, and then the nervines, which do the same thing for the nervous system, get to go into the body and help soften that sound, help soften that vibration of the nervous system that might feel super overwhelming, equaling what a stress picture might feel. So that's the way I go about regulating stress.
Well, I love that, and thank you for sharing that because I think it's crucial that we're managing stress with herbal remedies, with herbal options. And I'm thinking about some clients of mine that I see where we talk about even walking in nature or getting back to breath
Yeah.
work. And I wish I could give credit to who I heard it from, but recently I heard something called a movement snack where if
Mm.
we can't get in a lot of movement, because of busy schedules, we can't go to that workout class or we can't always get to those de-stressing options. The movement snack is getting up for 5 minutes and just going and taking a breather, you know?
Yeah.
So I loved that.
Yeah,
Um,
there's a built-in system in the body called the ultraradian system and cycle that it is a built-in break. Every 90 minutes, we're supposed to take a little 20-minute or even 10-minute little pardon from whatever we're doing to move and kind of associate with that mental stress, and just that's what keeps us in balance in the long haul, is having that nice cycle between the two.
well, and I think even when you talk about the struggle that women see with perimenopause, menopause, Hashimoto's, hormone dysregulation, we live in this world of I'm broken. Something is wrong with me. So I need to go on a medicine or I need to go see a doctor. And like at the end of the day, where we start is these herbals, this movement, this breath work, this de-stressing. And then the body is so smart. It wants to come back into homeostasis, right? And
Mhm.
so what if we lived in a world where we could start there, you know? So do you feel like in your day to day and in your line of work, how often are you visiting with women? How often are you meeting with women where they realize by seeing you that it doesn't have to be this extreme measure of hormone replacement therapy or the extreme measures that we take, right, in order to regulate? Like, are you seeing once they come visit with you that they're following these steps, or what are you seeing?
So one thing that's very, I guess I just love the way that the whole career path is kind of structured, is they come in with the very first thing on mind. Whenever anybody comes into my office, whether they're on meds, not on meds, it doesn't matter. I have a welcome everybody kind of sign out there. They come in, and the very first thing I work on is actually their belief and dismantling the belief that they had prior that they're broken. I actually work with them in a systematic way to get them to understand that the things we're going to work on are all to get that inner harmonizing inside the body to help the outside of the body. The body and the mind are connected. There's so many people that don't even realize that their mind is in fact part of their body. And then if you look at it further, that we're not just physical, that we're physical, mental, emotional, spiritual creatures. And once we get into that line of you're not broken, you're multiple layered deep person, so you're very interesting, you're very unique, we then can start to work on it. And with some people, they come to the table and maybe they can work on one thing, and it took them everything to get there. Today I saw two women back to back, and they were coming in for skin conditions. And I know that doesn't sound hormone related, it's very hormone related. And they went from the doctor wanting to put them on super strong steroids and antibiotics for this one woman. And she came to see me before she did this regimen. And I was really thankful. That's when she came in, because we literally stepped in front of the bus, I feel like, to like not messing things up further. It was not the right medicine for her. It was like firing a cannon at something that needed a little hammer to tap it back into place. Now, don't get me wrong, she came in with a lot of psoriasis, a very specific kind that's on her elbows and her face and her hair, so it took her a lot to come in. And it was her follow up that we just had today. And in 30 days, I took pictures. She had patches of her psoriasis that fell off in 30 days, and her acne cleared. She's 21 years old and she's covered with all of this. So, right medicine, right application. I'm not anti medicine, Western medicine, but I do feel like well applied Western medicine and well applied Eastern medicine or naturopathic medicine, it is really truly what we're doing here, right? To help these people truly.
Amen. Thank you for sharing that example. I feel like storytelling and examples help people really understand, if they do have a skin condition, what the underlying root cause could be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that I loved what you said too, before we, pulled out the big bus or the big bear, or the big guns or whatever, just starting where we can. Can you talk to us a little bit about the relationship between this ties into stress and it ties into hormones. So, talk to us about the relationship between oxytocin and adrenaline.
Okay, absolutely. So we've all heard of adrenaline, maybe, right? But do we really constitute it as one of the hormones that drives the literal car in our body? So, adrenaline is fired from the adrenal glands. It's when we have this fight or flight kick in. We've all maybe been, I don't know, out and you're out driving, maybe if you're a driver, and a deer jumps out in front of you and it really strikes up this like, oh my gosh. So adrenaline is one of the hormones that are released. It's a hormone that is a very normal thing. When it's released, it takes about 2 hours to actually come out of the blood, so it stays circulating for that long. um, then we have one that's opposite to that, which is oxytocin. Before I get onto that, the fight and flight response as adrenaline fires off in the body, there's actually fight, flight, and then there's freeze. When the element of adrenaline gets too much, you're super peaked out in your stress response, you can actually get where you're not running from the bear any longer. You're frozen and you can't do anything. So that's where adrenaline can lead you. Oxytocin is exactly the opposite. So I'm a Libra. So I talk about the Libra scales, the big, one raises and one falls. Oxytocin and adrenaline work like that in the body. So oxytocin is known as the love hormone. It is what's released when we have children, when we breastfeed, when we see something that makes you go, oh, like literally cat videos. That's releasing oxytocin. Um, some people think that they go their whole life and they have a drought of that. They don't have those awe moments. So I don't know if they even know that it's a hormone that's not being worked in their body. But like I said, they work in complete opposition. So today, with all of the stress that's cycling, and if I could even go as far as to say just having a phone in our hand and on our face and doing all the things that we do all the time online, that can strike up more of an adrenaline picture than we even realize, which can damper dopamine and fire off dopamine and do all these different things on other hormone levels. But the major thing that it does is it pushes down the available release of oxytocin. Oxytocin needs to be present for us to want to have sex, right? So, how many times do people come in to see me? I don't have a libido. I just, I don't know what's wrong. It must be menopause. But I'll be really honest, it might not be menopause. It might be, where is your adrenaline? Where is your adrenal cortex at? Are you completely broken as far as your burnout in your life, right? So I start having conversations with them about that before we even get to the sex part. And trust me, I talk a lot about that in my practice too. But when you have this oxytocin release, which, did you know there's herbs that actually can help release that for you and encourage that? Wish Garden is a company that I do not work for, but I recommend. They have something called, oh gosh, it's leaving me. I have it on my desk. One moment, please. I'm going to actually show it. Sorry if that's okay. It's called Liquid Bliss. I keep it right on my desk. It has some really cool things in it, like cottonwood bark, cocoa nibs, orange peel, hawthorn, passion flower. It's just an herbal combination that helps with a release of oxytocin. Sometimes I do that with people who they literally don't have those awe moments because they're so adrenalized. So I use it for anxiety, where they take some of that and it helps pop up that oxytocin just to drop that adrenaline a little bit. Um, in day to day, when I talked about sex, some women, they struggle with that so much and they can't have an orgasm. They don't know why they can't have that satisfaction, I guess, if we could equate it to something, to having sex. So that makes them not really maybe want to enter in, or whatever it is that's holding them back. And that can be due to the adrenaline in their body circulating throughout the day. Then it's time to go to bed, and that doesn't just shut off. Remember when I said it circulates for about 2 hours? So again, then where does melatonin and cortisol, other hormones fall into play? It's just a huge picture that when somebody sits down with me, we don't just talk about things as a one lane road. We look at all of these lanes in the body, trying to get them true core healing and, get to the root of the issue. So hormones are so amazing, but can feel like, where do I start? And that's why I'm glad we're talking about it right now.
Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. Me too. And it can feel like you're drinking from a fire hose. And so that's why today, you guys, too, Dr. Kosiba and I both only have 40 minutes to talk with you. And so we were trying to narrow it down. And we would love to come back if you're open to it, Dr. Kosiba. We'd love to have you back
Absolutely.
and cover some more ground on things like fertility and hormones and
Sure.
PCOS and periods and things, anything women health related. But I love what you just shared with us about oxytocin and its relationship to orgasms and joy and feeling pleasure and love and all of those things that are really important. It's an important part of life. And when we can't shut off that adrenaline, when we can't get out of that fight, flight, or freeze, so many women have a really hard time with that.
Right. And
Um,
how do we know that's not actually, if I could dare say, at the core of all of these other swirling vortex of symptoms, quote
right.
unquote symptoms, that people feel so much on a daily basis?
Absolutely. Amen to that. Well, with just a couple minutes left, is there anything that you could think of you've heard recently or in your practice that would be like a really great last little nugget to leave with the Sunny Side Up community for this episode? It can be
Mm.
anything related, just whatever comes to you.
So the very first thing that came to my brain was just we need to always look to hope. We need to get our hopes up. I remember as a kid hearing over and over again, don't get your hopes up. Just don't get your hopes up. But I feel like now, and where we are in this world with everything, in our lives, that get your hopes up. Like actually do that because somebody's waiting for you to match their vibration. And if we get enough people really getting their hopes up and really allowing for that joy, we're going to get somewhere. We're going to change the face of the planet. It's when we don't have that moment for ourselves to get our hopes up, we rely on others. So just that's what came to me was right now everybody get your hopes up, get your joy flowing so then when you're not able to do that, you can actually pull that on off somebody else's vibration and you can feel that to get back to where you need to be again.
Oh, I love that too, because we are energetic beings and we
We
feel
are.
people's energy, we give energy. Get your hopes up.
Yeah.
Get your hopes
Yeah.
up, everybody. That's the perfect thing for the sunny side up community, right?
Yeah.
Finding
Yeah.
that sunshine in the storms. Well, thank you for being here today. We're so grateful. I can't wait for part two. Dr. Kosiba, what's your website?
So it's wise woman with an A, naturalhealth.com.
Okay, I will link that in the comments and share all of your work. Thank you again. We're so grateful.
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure. So thank you so much.
All right, we'll see you next time.
Okay. Bye.